Hey, I'm back. You know what we're talking about. Chasing time travelers. Um, I'm going to talk to you about the White House, and but first I want to say one more thing about the Maryland 400 and the Mayan 400 drunken young men. So as I said to you before, there's a pillar in the story of the Maryland 400, and there's a pillar in the myth, the Mayan myth. There's a house arguably big by Mayan standards. There's a house in the real story in Prospect, uh, in Park Slope, Brooklyn, in Prospect Park, and there's a big house that they're fighting over in the myth. And and I talked to you about the ants being an encryption of the concept of an army, and that Zipacna was Lord Cornwallis, and what I forgot is the part about the tunnel. I was talking with a historian who knew about the stone house, and that got me really interested because I didn't know that there was an old stone house in Brooklyn. I just could, I just knew there was some part of the war there involving 400 guys just because I could interpret the Mayan myth. And he said, "Oh yeah, they were." This guy has a PhD in history, American history. He said, "Oh yeah, they were." Because I asked him, I said, "What do you know about the Maryland 400?" He said, "Oh yeah, they were fighting over the old stone house." I said, "Wait, what? Stone house?" He said, "Yeah." And then he told me about it. Then I'm thinking, and I'm like, in the myth, there's this. This is part about a tunnel, and Zipacna escapes through a tunnel. So I said to him, I said, "Is there a tunnel around there?" And he thought for a moment. He said, "No, there's no tunnel." I'm like, okay, and I'm thinking there's a tunnel there because the Mayans or who time travelers, whoever these people are, they never got things wrong. So it took me about half a minute to find it. I Googled, I guess I Googled Prospect Park Tunnel and Maryland 400 or something like that, and sure enough, there is a tunnel. It's just that the tunnel wasn't built until many decades after the American Revolutionary War. It's the whatever armory is located in that part of Brooklyn. They dug a tunnel and it's an escape tunnel in case things went south, so to speak. And so, in that sense, the myth is correct. Let's go to the next part. I think it's some part of Washington D.C. Let's see. Right. So I think I told you that the in the Mayan creation myth, Hunahpu goes up into the sky and becomes the sun, and his in quotes brother Eshbalank becomes the moon. I think they're talking about the apotheosis of George Washington, um, and at the top of the Capitol building, which you can see right now here. And here's a close up of it. And I know this part's a repeat. And here's the apotheosis of George Washington. So, what would it mean for about this? This implies that there's going to be an apotheosis of John Adams. And I checked, and according to what I found, the U.S. government is in the Park Service or someone like that. They're in the process of designing or choosing a location or something for the apotheosis of John Adams, just like in the creation myth. In When you're at the Lincoln Memorial and you walk out the front of it to the left, at an angle to the left, you hit the Vietnam Wall, and it's a wall full of the names of deceased soldiers from the war. Similarly, when you walk out the Temple of the Bearded Man at Chichen Itza at the Great Ball Court at the same angle, or roughly the same angle, I never actually measured it, but off to the left, you hit the Wall of Dead Soldiers. They call it Sampantli, but it's a wall of dead soldiers, and they're not all the same guy either. As you can see on the right, those skulls aren't the same. The Mayas didn't use names the way we do in contemporary America. They used them descriptively. So a guy's name wasn't Bob. His name was, maybe big ears or something like that. Um, so here's what I find interesting. Let's suppose all this stuff about time travel is complete nonsense, right? Um, let's suppose there's no such thing as it. So my question becomes, if that's not the case, then why are all these structures with similar concepts in the same places as the Mayas had them? Well, one answer could be this. Well, maybe we copied the Mayas. Sure. And my question is, well, why is America keeping that a secret? And if we did copy the Mayas, that doesn't explain how the Mayas got the land masses right. In other words, places that in theory they wouldn't have known about, like Mayans a thousand years ago. It's unlikely that they would have known about the sea cave at the Algarve in Portugal, or about the stages of religion in the Azores in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, or the shape of it, the boot shape of Italy. They even included the heel, and so on. Oh yeah. So I lost my thought. So let's suppose there's no such thing as time travel. Then the question becomes, just considering this wall, how did the U.S. government just happen to put this wall, the Vietnam Wall, at the same juxtaposition as the Mayas did for their wall of dead soldiers? So one possibility is it was coincidental. Yeah, maybe it was coincidental, and maybe all of this was coincidental. I understand that. Um, I read a book called Monuments. I didn't read the whole thing, just the part about the wall, and I can't remember the the military officer's name who chose the location for the Vietnam Wall, but he said he chose it randomly. He said he walked up to a map of the National Mall, and he randomly put his finger on a spot and said, "This is where I want the Vietnam Memorial," and so that's where they put it. So my question becomes, so yeah, maybe by chance he put his finger where the Mayas put their finger, but there's something weird about that whole thing. I'm not saying he was a time traveler. I'm saying that that's too many coincidences. So right next to the Vietnam Memorial Wall I'm sorry, right next to the Wall of Dead Soldiers that the sorry, I'll start again. Adjacent to the Wall of Dead Soldiers that the Mayas have, they've also got this guy. If you look at him carefully, he looks like he's carrying an armload of spears, which are of course weapons, and he's got all these uh, snakes around him. You can see their teeth. They're not playing, but the snakes aren't attacking him. They seem to be protecting him. And he's got a big hat on, almost like a baker. So what's this guy's deal? Well, he seems to be involved with weapons, is the point, and I'll explain. So here's the same guy. Now I want you to notice that he's following that eagle with a heart in his hand, and I'll explain why that's the case in a minute. But um, my point is, if you look on the the picture on the right, that's an old World War One munitions plant, right? Weapons, and that munitions plant um, was destroyed, and right next to where, well, you see the Lincoln Memorial in that right side picture, right? So, in other words, that munitions plant was very close to where the Vietnam Wall was built, and so they both have this concept of weapons, munitions, etc. Let's talk the White House. The Mayas described the White House as an island. I'll skip this picture, but you should see two large birds there. The Mayas called what we call where we have the White House, the Mayas have the platform of eagles and jaguars. Their top guy was a jaguar. Our top guy is an eagle. Where you see them both eating a human heart, that means that they're at the top of the food chain. That means they're the leaders. So our top guy, like I said, here's the presidential seal. And then there are these guys at the top of the platform of eagles and jaguars who look like they're carrying weapons of some sort. This guy looks like he's got on a combat helmet, night vision goggles or something, some kind of rocket launcher. Here are two more guys. Look at the top. They're toe to toe. It looks like they're looking through a peephole. Two more guys. There are 16 of those guys up there. Here's a close-up. Looks like he's got a rocket launcher, fire coming out of it or something. And we know that's what's up there, right? Guys with weapons. End of part 18. Thanks for listening.